So I'm just reading a bit of scripture, but I'm about a month now living in the camper van and experiencing more peace. But the scripture seems to be speaking more and more to me and reminding me of my life, past, present and hopefully future. But I'm just going to read you a little bit of scripture. So this comes at the end of the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 7. And here we go. Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock. And the rain fell and the floods came and the winds blew and beat on that house, but it did not fall because it had been founded on the rock. And everyone who hears these words of mine and does not do them will be like a foolish man who built his house on the sand. And the rain fell and the floods came and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell, and great was the fall of it. I just have a moment and a thought from my past, and it was many years ago, and I was homeless, and I went into a church, and they made me a cup of tea and gave me some biscuits and a slice of toast, and I knew they didn't want me there. It was freezing outside. I only had a t-shirt on. Now, they had to go and they had to lock the place up, and I knew that, and that's sort of normal. But you just know, don't you, if somebody wants rid of you. They didn't want me to stay, even if they could. And I left, and I heard the door close behind me, and I heard it lock. And I felt cold. I felt lonely. And I felt unloved. I guess I'd gone to the church looking for something, and they'd become only all too familiar with people like me, and they'd forgot how to love very difficult people. And as I left and across the road and I walked further down, there was a guy, homeless guy, and he was in a doorway, and he beckoned me over, and he said, "Where are you sleeping?" And I said, "I don't know." And he asked me to sit down, and it was freezing, and he covered me up with his quilt, and then he took his hat off his head, woolly hat, and he put it on mine, and I was rattling for a drink, alcoholic that I was. I was shaking. I wasn't far off having a fit, and he had a bottle of cider, and he just opened it. I'd never met him before, and he slowly, over the next half an hour, just held it and poured it into my mouth, just till I got enough alcohol for the shakes to stop. Then he rolled me a cigarette and he put it in my mouth and he lit it for me, and he said, "You'll be alright now, lad. You know, I met Jesus in the shop doorway because I couldn't find him in the church." The scripture that I just read, building your house on the rock, is a doing scripture. It's about doing the things that God's called you and asked you to do. Not just thinking about them, you know. Not just praying with no action, you know. It's about basing your life on love and not familiarity. And I guess have we become too familiar with one another and less familiar with God? So I think the time that I'm spending in the camper van is helping me greatly to become more familiar with God and less familiar with people. So it's teaching me how to love God, so that I can love people. I was laid in bed, the bed behind me last night, and the wind blew I'm rocking, and I started thinking, blimey, this motorhome's going to kind of roll away or get blown over. And you know the scripture I read, it says the wind came and blew on the house, but because it was on a strong foundation, it did not fall. And that's what it feels like for me in this motorhome. It feels like I'm building my life all over again on a much, much stronger foundation than it's ever been on before. I'm becoming less familiar with people and more familiar with God, which helps me to love and helps me to be loved. I am enjoying the time in the camper van greatly, and I feel like receiving new revelations, in my scripture when I'm reading. I don't know if it's because I'm kind of less distracted, maybe, or I've got the freedom to just move to and fro wherever I need to go or feel I need to go. It's making me think more deeply. The things like we discussed last time about, people coming all the way over from Africa to buy us coats and things for the sustenance of children in this country. It's made me think more deeply. The power of God, the doing, the actions that Christians are called to do. They're not just words, We're not just following a flag. We're living our faith out, and I think that's the most important thing. There's just above me, I don't know, you won't be able to see it, but just above where I drive in the cab, there's a big scripture, and it just says, "As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." And that is a wonderful scripture for any household, whether that be a house on wheels or a house with a front door. I feel peaceful, and I don't know if you can hear. If you just listen, go quiet just for a second, you can hear Ozzy snoring. So Ozzy feels that peace with me, and God bless you. Week 4, a month in, and still loving it and getting closer to God. Thank you.